Hey everybody, welcome to Downballot Roundup in partnership with Leave No Dem Behind, where I introduce you to Democratic candidates running in local elections throughout the country. I'm Brian Randolph, and today I am here with Angela Jones, who is running for the Michigan House of Representatives to represent the 37th District. Angela, it is fantastic to have you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely, it's so good to have you. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you?
So, obviously, my name is Angela. I am living here in Niles, Michigan, where my husband and I bought our house in 2018. We have four children. Three of them are adults and moved on. I have one child left in high school before I'm going to be out of, the empty nester, which is really bizarre having been a mom for so long. I have been a small business owner for the last 16 years. As a photographer. I've made a career out of that. And then I opened a photography studio that's separate from my wedding and events, and it specializes in boudoir and couples. And then I also started doing coloring books more recently because my grandmother is, oh, obviously, I'm an artist. My grandmother, after COVID, could not really leave the house anymore because of mobility issues and health issues. And they had closed down everything that she enjoyed doing, and it never restarted after COVID. So all she does is color, and I can't fly to Houston and be there all the time. So I wanted something that she could think of me while she was coloring. And so I started designing coloring books for her, and then it just kind of blossomed. I've got my daughters kind of inspired my Angry Kittens and Thick Cats Only coloring books. And I have a Candyland that's been very popular, and then a Van Gogh inspired one that has also been very popular. So I'm always thinking of new ideas on what to design, and then I start them. Sometimes I finish them, but I've got about 30 books that I've made so far.
Wow, 30. That's a lot. All right, well, why
Yeah.
don't you tell me a little bit about the 37th District?
So the 37th district is, we've got three major cities, and two of them are in Berrien County, and one is in Cass County. It kind of encompasses both counties, like a part of both counties. Very rural in between. We've got a lot of agriculture that we're very well known for here in Southwest Michigan. We've got vineyards, wineries, hops, breweries. Lately, cannabis has been popping up left and right. We have a very soil rich area, and the rolling hills are absolutely gorgeous. So I love it here.
Excellent. And I'm sure you've been out talking to people. What are you hearing? What's the big issues out in District 37?
From a state level, it's been the economy, housing, and education. There's been a flip flop on reproductive rights. People feel very strongly one way or the other on reproductive rights. Um, I am for, I am a big proponent for human rights and keeping our constitutional rights. So it concerns me that we were able to have a constitutional right revoked. We now have fewer rights at the federal level than I was born with, which is very concerning. Because if they can do that, they've now set precedent to be able to remove more rights by taking it out of the federal and giving it to the states. And there's a point where I don't think that my neighbor should be able to vote about whether I have rights. Like, that's just absurd to me. We live in a country of the free. Why are we voting on whether somebody can have basic rights? If you don't have autonomy to your own body, you're not truly free. So I feel very strongly about that, but that needs to be readdressed and codified in the federal constitution, not just at the state level. But as far as housing, education, and some have said healthcare, but our economy has been a big one here in Michigan.
Do you feel like the number of people kind of, you said there's a lot of people on one side or the other. Do you feel like they've kind of moved one way or the other since the decision came down?
Um, I would love to say yes, but I think that they have been so ingrained into following the party line that they don't question it really. They'll vote against their own best interest just because they either hate Democrats so much or they've been convinced that voting for a Democrat will ruin their lives. And it's absurd to me because I'm like, I've been a Republican before. I was raised into it. I know their line of thinking. I know why they think the way they think. And so that gives me kind of a unique perspective on the two parties because I've been a moderate independent, and I lean liberal because of my human rights and activism. But I am still very much a constitutionalist. So it's like I I can see both sides, and I align more with the Democratic viewpoint more of late, especially. And I feel like they refuse to even acknowledge that what they're voting for is harming them, because they're convinced that it's us, that it's Democrats that are causing all the problems. It's
Uh, you,
unfortunate.
you, yeah, you'd mentioned a few different issues. Are there any in particular where you and your opponent are very much on opposite sides?
Definitely about reproductive rights. He is absolutely against reproductive freedom, including the removal of access to IVF, in vitro fertilization treatments for couples who are struggling with fertility. We absolutely do not agree on how gun violence should be approached. He is very much about basically arming the schools and kind of following the JD Vance viewpoint of let's go ahead and make the doors thicker, all these security measures, almost like our children are in a prison. And I'm like over here going, we can't even fund the schools, and we're going to afford to what, arm the teachers and arm the guards, and how are we going to fund all of this? So there was a bipartisan measure that went through at the beginning of 2023, I believe, that was passed once the Democrats got ownership control of the House and Senate back in they won in 2022, so they took over in 2023, and they were able to pass with our Governor Governor Whitmer a couple of initiatives for gun safety, gun violence reduction. And the plan is to, if you have a child or if you're going to have a minor child in your home, your gun has to be locked away. I mean, these are like common sense gun laws that, as a law abiding citizen with a firearm, I would want to be responsible about it. Like, with your rights comes responsibility. And I think that if you're going to have a child in your home, you should be doing everything in your power to make sure that that child cannot access your firearm, because firearms are killing children. Children with firearms, access to firearms, are killing other children. And it's like, we want to avoid that. So let's be responsible about it. And I feel like when we use the Second Amendment, which is a constitutional right, I'm not going for that. I have no problem with responsible gun ownership. My issue is when we put the rights of potential criminals over the lives of our children. What is that? What is that saying exactly? Especially when a lot of these same people are very pro-life and want these children born, but then don't want to help with taking care of them after they're born.
All right. So, I know that you are running in a very red area. What are some of, and I know that not necessarily getting a whole lot of support, party support, kind of running on your own. What, how is that going? And what are some of the challenges you face? How have you overcome them? How is that generally going?
It's going pretty well. I've had pretty much my entire thing is volunteer from the ground up. I'm volunteering. Anybody that is canvassing with me, we are all 100% volunteers. Very low budget, so we're making the most of what we can with what little we have. Um, I have not been as active going door to door because I don't like when people come to my house unannounced. Like, I could be in the middle of trying to do a video interview and suddenly somebody's knocking on my door, and it's very off-putting to me, so I don't want to do that to somebody else. But I have canvassers that are willing to go and do that. And I've kind of relinquished control of that, which is very concerning to me because I like to make sure that what is being said on my behalf is accurate. But I trust them, and they're doing a good job just making sure that the voters out there feel heard. My biggest thing has been the use of social media. Um, I just, at this point, using texting, mailers, and going door to door is still helpful, but it doesn't. There's so many people that just don't answer the door, who don't check like, when you get your mail, you just throw it, or you don't even look at it. You're just like, oh, junk, 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 throw it in the trash. You get the text messages. Are you actually reading them? The moment you see hi, and you realize it's not somebody you know, you're not reading it. but you're passively on Facebook, social media at any point in time. I mean, we've all got our phones in our hand, and it's a non-invasive way to kind of get your message and your name across, to just have your name just showing up on their feed regularly. And social media advertising is relatively inexpensive compared to the cost of mailers and the cost of signage and all that. The signs definitely do help. I've got signs everywhere. And I actually had a couple of Republicans telling me, they're like, I see your signs all over. There's another one. They're on the phone. And they're like, oh, I'm on this street. There's another one. I'm like, yes, it's working. But it's just getting the name recognition out there as much as possible has been the biggest thing. It's like 7 points of contact. You want them to see your name at least 7 times. And the closer you get to the election date, the more you want to really push that out there. And I've found social media to be the cheapest way to do grassroots activism and marketing.
Excellent. All right. So now we're down to my final question, which is my favorite question. I call it my softball question. I would like you to tell me something about District 37 that makes it special to you.
So I love how many, like we have the Midwestern hometown. It's like the heart of our district is basically, we have these beautiful little unique downtown districts. Um, Niles, Buchanan, Dowagiac, but even the smaller ones, like it's almost like it's stepping into a movie from the past. And you've got like this fusion of like small businesses that you can't find anywhere else. It's not like this big giant commercial district where, I mean, you still have those too, but it's just, I don't know, it's very homey. And the most Midwestern thing you can think of when you think of a Midwestern small town is like the little shops and the beautiful side streets, and the trees here in the fall are beyond stunning. I think it's so picturesque here. And then, like I said before, when you're driving in the countryside and you got the rolling hills with the vineyards and the trees and the dunes, and it's like the sun kind of cascading through. And in certain times of the year when the fog is lifting up off the river, the St. Joseph River, it is so beautiful. It's one of my,
You're in
it is
Michigan,
honestly
right?
my favorite place to live.
You're in
So,
Michigan. All right.
yes, it
Angela
is.
Jones is running for the Michigan House of Representatives to represent District 37. Best of luck. I really hope you get it. I think you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Brian.